The Usumacinta disaster was one of the world's deadliest offshore oil accidents, after a jackup drilling rig collapsed onto a wellhead platform and a fire destroyed the rig. But it wasn't the fire which killed the workers. Let's delve into this accident and see why this ended up being such a colossal disaster. The Usumacinta installation was a jackup drilling rig. Jackup rigs are mobile offshore drilling units that are towed from place to place to conduct drilling operations. The Usumacinta jackup was a Bethlehem 200 design, manufactured in 1982 by Bethlehem Steel in Singapore, and delivered to Perforadora Central to conduct drilling operations. Jackup drilling rigs have two main designs. Most have individual legs with spud cans that are lowered to the seabed, and then the unit jacked up above the water to start drilling operations. But the Bethlehem design had an alternative mat-type support structure. The mat is lowered to the seabed by jacks and penetrates the soil by around 3 to 4 feet. The rig structure is then jacked up to the correct height to get sufficient clearance above any platform it is operating on. Then finally the drilling derrick is skidded over the platform on a cantilever deck before commencing drilling operations. In 2007, the Usumacinta rig had been contracted by the Mexican state-owned oil company Pemex. It was employed to commence drilling operations in the Gulf of Mexico, in the Bay of Campeche at the Cab 101 platform, 16 miles off the coast of Mexico. Mexico has significant oil and gas reserves, and the majority is located in the Bay of Campeche region. The Cab 101 platform was a normally unmanned minimum facilities platform, using the Sea Pony structure designed by SLP Engineering. This image shows another Sea Pony installation of the same design, which has one wellhead. The Cab 101 platform had 2 wells drilled, wells 101 and 121, and a third well, 103, was due to be completed by the rig. On Sunday, October the 21st, 2007, the Usumacinta was moved into position next to the Cab 101 platform, jacked up into position and started preparing to work on the well. But at 0700 hours on October the 23rd, winds of 62 miles per hour and 8-metre high waves were starting to hit the installation, so operations were ceased. The storm increased, and at 11:30 the vessel shifted sideways in the waves, with the mat support overlapping some holes made by the spud cans of a previous drilling rig. The rig tipped forward and the cantilever deck collided with the platform. A beam from the cantilever hit one of the Christmas trees, the system of valves installed on top of the wellhead to control the well. The collision caused gas to start escaping from a crack on the 121 wellhead. Crew from the Usumacinta went down onto the platform to close the subsurface safety valves, known as SSVs or storm valves, to isolate the source of gas from the 2 wells. The SSVs are located in the well below the surface, and initially the leak stopped. But a short while later, the valve on well 121 failed, allowing gas to start leaking from the wellhead again. Unable to control the leak anymore, at 3:30 p.m, the offshore installation manager decided to evacuate the installation using lifeboats. The Usumacinta had 2 lifeboats, one located each side of the rig. The boat on the starboard side was an oval-shaped Whittaker model that could hold 50 persons, and the port side had a Shat-Harding watercraft which could hold 44 persons. The 81 members of the rig's crew boarded the 2 lifeboats and successfully descended to the water. A number of vessels were nearby and responded to the call for help. These included the Morrison Tide, Far Scotia, Isla del Toro and the Sagittario. The first vessel to reach the Usumacinta was the Morrison Tide. On reaching the water, Lifeboat 1 immediately headed towards the Morrison Tide. The hatch on Lifeboat 1 had been opened, and many of the occupants were on the outside of the lifeboat, but the heavy seas were making it difficult for the Morrison Tide to rescue the personnel. Whilst waiting to be rescued, many of the lifeboat occupants were thrown into the sea. Some managed to get back onto the lifeboat, but unfortunately many were lost. One crew member on the deck of the Morrison Tide was also killed in the rescue attempt, and another crew member was washed overboard. By this time, the Far Scotia, Isla del Toro and Sagittario had also arrived on scene. The 4 vessels managed to rescue some survivors, but also recovered a number of bodies. A number of helicopters also joined the search and were able to rescue some personnel from the sea. Lifeboat 2, on reaching the water, headed away from the platform due east towards land, away from the Morrison Tide. The window of the craft that the coxswain looked out of to steer the boat was covered in oil, which made navigation difficult. The occupants were also affected due to the rough weather and stifling conditions inside the boat. A hatch was opened to let in fresh air and for navigation, but after an hour it lost its rudder, and then the vessel was hit by a large wave and capsized. Some occupants were able to escape the upturned lifeboat swimming underwater. The helicopters also rescued a number of occupants from Lifeboat 2, and a hole was cut in the upturned hull to rescue some of the workers. But in total, 22 persons died, including the 2 crew members of the Morrison Tide. This made the accident the 9th deadliest offshore oil accident in the world, and Mexico's deadliest. But the incident didn't end there. The gas leak on the Cab 101 platform was continuing. Support vessels used water curtains to try to suppress the gas cloud to prevent any fire or explosion, whilst workers tried to make the well secure. Oil was also escaping into the sea, with an iridescent sheen visible on the water surface drifting away from the platform. Then on November the 13th, 20 days after the incident started, the gas release found an ignition source. Fortunately, the fire was quickly brought under control, and water curtains continued to be sprayed onto the rig to cool it down, which worked for a while. But 7 days later, on November the 20th, a second fire broke out, and this one proved more difficult to control. The fire raged out of control for several days until, on 25th of November, the drilling derrick collapsed due to the fire damage, and still the fires continued on the platform. Eventually, on 3rd of December, the well was finally brought under control. A bell-type device had been manufactured that could be placed over the wellhead to contain the release, which enabled the gas to be flared off in a controlled manner whilst the well was made safe. And that concludes the tragic tale of the Usumacinta disaster, where the very systems that were meant to provide a safe haven for workers ended up being their downfall. The accident shows the importance of good emergency preparedness and adherence to procedures in the event of an incident. Unfortunately, the workers involved here were not prepared and paid for it with their lives. I hope you have found this enlightening, and if you have, please like and subscribe and leave any comments of what you think about this accident. Thank you for watching.